Hi, this is Vi from Scrappy Mania, and today we're going to create a card with some items that you already may have. Do you remember this stamp around a page by Martha Stewart? This was something that she had some years ago and I loved it, but yet I put it away and I haven't used it. So today I want to use this to make a card, and we're going to use it a little different because when you buy this stamp around a page, there's certain measurements that you have to use. Your card has to be no smaller than 4 by 6, and you go 2 inches above, like 6 by 8, and then you got 10 by 12. So if you get the right size, then your stamp will align perfectly in a nice little frame. However, sometimes we want to use these card bases, and I bought this at Michael's. These are some of these, economical cards that you get, like 60 with the envelopes, and they always put them on sale every year. They have solid colors, they have some that have designs. So I really like to use these for my card bases because they're pretty economical. For $5 I get all of these. But however, if you're going to use the stamp around the page stamp, they're too small. They're actually 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and the minimum size that you need to make a perfect frame with the stamp around the page is 4 by 6. So it's not going to work. You can also do it 4 by 4. So you can do. It will also work if you have a square that starts 4 inches and above. So you can do 4 by 4, 6 by 6, 8 by 8, 10 by 10, and 12 by 12. So those are the sizes to get a perfect frame with stamp around the pages. But we don't have to do that. We can still use this stamp and create a nice little card. You're basically just going to use for the top and the bottom. And I've also used it before without using the tool. I will just stamp it by eye and just stamp it on the side, and it also works fine. It's just it's not perfect, but like we all know, crafting does not have to be perfect. The card doesn't have to be perfect. It could have a nice little imperfection, and that makes it beautiful. So I want to show you how to use this stamp in a different way than what you probably more likely are used to using. So that's a stamp that it's been retired. Martha Stewart no longer carry this, but if you see this in a garage sale or even on eBay, or they're pretty nice to get. Tuesday Morning may have it. So I just want to show you how you can use the stamp if you have it to create a card. Another thing that I just purchased, and it was from May Made It, is this lovely little stamp that has these beautiful shoes. Let me see if I can show you this. It has some beautiful sayings like the steps of a man are established by the Lord when he delights in his way. Psalm 37:23. So I really love this stamp. She also is giving $5 to an organization that gives shoes to the underprivileged. So they wash the feet of people and then buy them shoes, brand new shoes. So I really wanted to contribute to that, and I really love the stamp. So I think it was a win-win for me. So I got this stamp. I will put the link to the May video that shows how she's using the stamps, and also the link, it will have the link on where you can purchase it if you like them. This is called Walk in Love. The other saying that I like out of this stamp is the one that says, act justly, love mercy, and work humbly. So I like that, and that's Micah chapter 6, verse 8. And then you have the last one that says, enjoy the journey with these shoes. So I really love this shoe. She also has a video of how she paper pieced these shoes as well in another card. So I want to use that. The other thing that I want to use is, I don't know about you, but a lot of times when I'm making scrapbooks or making cards and I'm using a paper pad, I have a lot of scraps. So what I did is I cut a lot of my scraps down as for card layers. So some of these are 4 by 6, some of these are 6 1/4, by 5 by 4 1/4. So it's basically just card fronts. Some are 6 by 5, I believe. So I did a lot of different sizes, and I went ahead and put them in this box. I also made lots of embellishments for the card, like these blank labels where I can stamp a saying and put it on my card. And I also went ahead and cut a bunch of these flourishes with the Anna Griffin dies. So I'll put the link to the dies. But basically, I just took scraps of glitter paper that I have left over, made a bunch of dies, and I put it in this box. And this box is on my shelf, so whenever I want to go ahead and make a card, I just pull from there, and I don't have to open another pack of cardstock or break a 12 by 12 cardstock just to make a card. So I want to use my little pieces left over for that. I'm going to use this one, which is an Anna Griffin cardstock, and it has flocking on it. And I thought that would go very nicely here for my base. And then here's a label. So I used my Scan and Cut to cut tons of these labels. So I'm going to use that here. And then I'm going to go ahead and stamp another shoe, and I'm going to place it there. And I think this time I'm going to use red for my shoe just to make it pop. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to emboss my my flowers instead of just flat. So this one was flat. This is a prototype card that I made. So I want to go ahead and emboss it. Now I'm not going to make this flower here because we already have flocking, so I don't want to distract from the flocking. But that's what I'm going to do. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and place that. Oh, I need to get the block. So there's a little groove right here, a triangle, and then there's a triangle on your stamp. So if you cannot see that, let me see if I can show you that. So there's like a little triangle right there, and you match that triangle with the triangle right there. So I think I want it this way, so I'm going to match it, that triangle. And then the good thing about this stamp, it has a grid, so you can make sure that it's positioned just perfect on your stamping block. The other thing that these come is they come with a template. So you're going to go ahead and slide that template in here, because you're going to match. Once you stamp this, what you do is you put the card back in, and then you match the flowers here, and see how it matches the flower there, and then you stamp again, and that will make a perfect border. You know, you don't really need the template. You can easily eye it. So if you find these stamps without the template or without this base, it'll be fine. You can easily use it as well. It doesn't matter. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to insert this card, the card base. I'm going to insert it until there's a little line right here. Okay, so I'm going to insert it there, and oh, and you can see right here where there's like a little notch. So you're just going to place your cardstock right up to that notch, and it kind of stops. See? And then before you stamp it, now this it lost some of the stickiness, so let me clean it. Sometimes these stamps get dusty, and if you clean them, they'll regain the stickiness again, or the tackiness, and it will remain on your block. So I'm going to go ahead, place it back on my block, and I think that's good right there. I'm using this Encore Ultimate Metallic, and it's very sticky, so it's going to be perfect for my embossing powder. And before I do anything else, because it's still kind of wet, so I don't want it to get smudged. I don't want no smudging on here, so I'm going to go ahead and put some embossing powder. And of course, I have to get the embossing powder with glitter. This is Jewel Gold by it's an embossing powder, Stupendous. That's the brand. And before you stamp it, you can take a little brush and just get rid of the excess. And there you go. Now I'm going to go ahead and emboss it. So let me go ahead and emboss this and I shall be back. So it's embossed and now I'm ready to do the other side. I'm going to speed up the video because it's the exact same technique. You're just going to emboss your each corner, first stamping with the ink, getting rid of any excess, and then heating it up. And one thing, the first two, I didn't have my embossing tool nice and hot. So I will recommend that you really preheat your embossing tool. And that makes a big difference. Because let me show you the difference between using the heat tool when it was cold and using the heat tool when it's nice and hot, that you preheat it. So if you see this, these two was done when the heat tool was completely cold and I just heated it up while I was embossing. These two was done with the heat tool preheated. You can really see it there. So I recommend that you preheat your tool whenever you want to emboss. Sometimes I'm in a hurry and I don't do that, and every time it really doesn't pay to be in a hurry sometimes because it doesn't come out perfect, but it will do. Now the next one, so let me go ahead and clean this off a little bit. It's going to be this one. That's going to fit perfect on each side. And again, you have a little notch right in each corner, and then you have your little notch on the block. You're going to match those two notches, and then you're going to bring your stamping tool, whatever this stamping plate, and then what you want to do is you want to go ahead and match. See how it matches the flower right on the right hand side? So it matches the flower. So now I'm going to go ahead and ink my stamp. And press down. Okay, gonna remove, go ahead carefully, insert the other side, do the same thing. And then remove it. Okay. Go ahead and put some embossing powder. Clean any excess embossing powder that you need to clean. And go ahead and emboss it. Okay, perfect. See how beautiful that looks? I'm going to go ahead and put my powder back in the tub. And I'm going to set that aside. Okay, so we're done with that. So now let's go ahead and stamp off our shoe. I'm going to go ahead and stamp my shoe right there. So this is VersaFine, and one thing that I do is this came with a kit and it ran out of ink, so it's just one of those generic little ink pads. I bought just a re-inker for the VersaFine, and I used that. So you don't have to, if you have stamp pads that, you know, old stamp pads that came with kits and you no longer use them, you can easily repurpose those using the best inks out there, which is VersaFine. The Tim Holt one is pretty good. So you can just buy the re-inker and not have to buy the inking pad. And I like it because it closes up pretty nicely. So that's just what I do. So you want to make sure that this soaks in. And see, perfect stamping. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this. Now I'm going to go ahead and color this in. And I'm going to use a number 4 round. I'm going to be very careful with my water because this is Bristol Smooth cardstock, so it's not watercolor paper. And also I'm going to be running it through my ScanNCut, so I don't want the ScanNCut to pick up extra color. I just want it to pick up the border. So I'm kind of keeping within the line and just putting a little bit of color, making sure my brush is not soaking wet. Okay, I think that looks pretty nice. I can even use a pen to really color the little end part of the heel. So I'm going to go ahead and dry it because you really want to dry this before you put it on your ScanNCut. Or you can cut it by hand. I prefer to use the ScanNCut to cut my stamps. It's a lot easier and it makes that perfect margin. Well, I decided to come over to the ScanNCut and show you how I do it. This is the DX. And for those who maybe don't know about the ScanNCut, it's a cutting machine made by Brother, and the beauty about the ScanNCut is that it scans your image, so you can stamp a page, or you can, whatever you stamp, you can go ahead and feed it in the machine. So let me go ahead and feed it, and it's going to be hard with one hand. So what you do is you feed it in. So I'm going to go ahead and feed this, and you're going to hit this button and it feeds it in. So once it feeds into the machine, you're going to go ahead and select Start. It's going to scan it. So it's going to scan it and it's going to start creating that cut file. Depending on what you have on that image and how large it is, it may take longer, it may take less time. The next thing, you want to narrow what you want to cut because it's going to pick up any lines from your cutting mat unless you have a scanning mat. And when you do a direct cut file, it's going to pick up all those stray lines on your mat. Then you have the ability to put a little border, so I go ahead and put a small little border around my image, and now I'm going to let it cut. It's pretty simple. The machine, you don't need to calibrate it or tell it how much pressure or the blade depth. It knows it automatically. So it's just going to cut your image. And before you remove it from the cutting pad or from the mat, make sure it completely cuts. It did. If it didn't cut, then you can always run it back through. But it did cut it. So that's how you use a scan and cut. And let me take you back to the table. So now I'm going to go ahead and stamp my saying. And let's go ahead and make sure I have it even. And there. And it's going to be very simple to assemble this card. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my base layer on. And put some double adhesive, sticky tape. Put some double adhesive on my saying. And I can go ahead and put some foam on my shoe. I think that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to put the base layer first. I'm going to put it in between my embossed border. Then this is the next layer that goes on, which is my saying. If you're looking at this tool, this is a We Are Memory tool. It has a pokey tool on one side, and then it has something to a sticky stick on the other to pick up gems or little embellishments. So that's what I'm using. I'm going to place this here. Then we're going to go ahead and place my shoe right here. Now if you feel like you need something there, what you can do is you can put either a butterfly or you can stamp a flower, cut the flower out. So a lot of times what I do is when I'm making cards or scrapbook, and I tend to make more embellishments than what I need, I put in this little envelope, any extra embellishments, and then I use those either to make cards, or when I have friends over and we're making cards for church, they can use these little embellishments. And I get inspired from Anna Griffin that you know, she has these card kits that has all the embellishments, everything cut out for you, everything die cut, and you just put it together. So I kind of use that inspiration to cut extra pieces of embellishments, cards or stamps, and I use these for my cards. So I'm just going to put, it just needed something, so I'm going to put this leaf. I think that rounds it up pretty nicely. And that's my card. And there. I'm done with this card. So here's my card. And here's the first card that I made. So I hope you liked this video and thank you for watching. Bye now.